I got the GPS on.
You put in the address.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, people out there, for all the Muslims, and may, if you're not Muslim, may Allah guide you to the truth and let you get this understanding, wisdom, who everybody can't get it, even though it's all in the same book and it's in our everyday life. But I wanted to talk about a situation that happened to me over this last week. Basically, I went to jail from Monday to Thursday on a traffic ticket, missing court. And I went to jail at this particular prison. I'm going to call it prison. Holding, it's called a detention center. Thank you, son. It's called a detention center. They changed the name from jail to detention center. Simply because all they do is hold people to be shipped off. And this place has a prerequisite that you have to go through for 3 days. It's like orientation is what they call it. And this orientation, you have to go by all the rules. And they got some real strange rules. Whenever you see a security officer, or if you see the guy who runs this prison, if you see him, you can't even say his name. You have to run up against the wall and say, yes sir, no sir, and all that. But if you see a regular officer, you gotta yell out the officer. There's an officer on deck, and you gotta run up. And when he say your relief, you can say thank you sir and walk off. But your hands gotta be behind your back at all times. They carry tasers and they tase people for simple things. They even have dogs that comes out. They have about 5 guys, all of them built 200 plus pounds, and they come and pounce on you if they feel you a real issue. Well, their rules are, one of their rules is when you go to bed at night, first of all, you're only out of the room 1 hour for the whole day. So out of 24 hours, you get 1 hour where you can walk, or you can go downstairs. There's no television. There's no nothing down there but angry young men. And when you go back to the room after your red break, they constantly check on you to make sure your toilet papers has a shape in it. The shape of the guy who runs the prison. It has to be a shape of his name. Yes, the toilet paper has to be the shape of his name. And there's the consequences if it's not. Also, your bed has to be made where you could flip a dime on it, really tight. And you have the extra sheet, which is probably the width of a ruler. So it's not really wide. It barely fits over your body. And it's very thin where you can see through it. Well, this sheet has to go over your body until 12 o'clock at night. 12 o'clock at night, you could put this bed, you could put the blanket over yourself. And 4 o'clock in the morning, you gotta have your bed made and out of the blanket. If you get caught under that blanket 4 in the morning, you're gonna find yourself being embarrassed, up and in trouble. So this place was really rough. But for me in particular, when I came to this jail, or I call it prison, or detention center is with the name of it. When I came to it, I came in a room where I had to share with 2 young men, one 19 and one 18. And these young men was acting real aggressive. In retrospect, I found out that they were scared of me because they didn't know what to expect. But at first, they had all these tattoos on their face, and they was claiming a gang, and that they, how much they don't play and how many bodies they got. They killed some people, and they do this and they do that. And I couldn't help but to believe them because of, the tattoos all over them, and they claiming these gangs. So I got a little deep into what they was believing in, because I always want to know what people's belief is. So they worship their ancestors, some type of new religion I never heard of. After they talked about this new religion, they said that they don't believe in God. They don't believe in religion. They just believe in this ancestry stuff. They worship their ancestry. So I said, wow, I'm learning something new here. Gang members, and they worship their ancestry. So they started talking about ancestry. Son, is like your great grandparents, people that come from that's part of you part of their family from a long time ago. And some of them do great things, and they have a legacy. They have a story behind their name. Those are your ancestries. But we don't worship nobody but what?
Allah.
That's it. We don't worship creation. We worship the what?
Allah.
What is Allah? Creation or what?
Creator.
He the creator. We don't worship the creation. So anyway, these young kids at first scared me. Am I going the right way? Was it this far?
I don't remember. What
So,
time is it?
Anyway, these kids, I think we did come down here. Anyway, these kids, these young men, started, after they told me their religion, and they saw me praying every day. I make 5 prayers a day, so every time I bowed down to pray, they started out of nowhere. They just started praying behind me, and they would pray, in their own separate prayer. They wasn't praying with me, but they'll pray when I pray, and they pray behind me and asking God for guidance. So eventually, I started talking to these guys, man, and more personal. And they was kind of looking at me like a big brother because they saw I wasn't there to hurt them. And eventually, they started crying and many other things. They got personal and told me this and told me that. So after that, I end up teaching them about basics of Islam and why I wouldn't worship anything but the Creator, and how Allah is the only name that represents the Creator above everything, above the creation. That every other religion is associated with something of this creation, whether a culture or a color or race. But Islam, submission to the will of God, Allah, who is God, God is Allah, and God is the most merciful, the most kind, the just, the Lord, the King. All of those names belong to Allah, so Allah is not identified by anything created. He is what gives everything that's created name or meaning. So they understood this, and by day 3, they was crying. Like I said, they was crying, and for their parents, and talking about this and that, and they were seeking guidance. And I really wanted to share this to everybody because it's sad how these young people can give you a different view, but you got to be an adult and overlook it and understand that they may be asking for your help. And I never experienced this for myself, but it was something, man. It was amazing, and I still think about those guys, those young guys, right now. And one of them gave me their parents' name and number, and told me to contact them, and I'll do that if God's willing. And it was just amazing, man. And even more, I went when I was being released on the 4th day. They was really sad because they wanted to be. They wanted to stay around me. So when I left, they just pulled me out of the situation. And next thing you know, I was free. So when I when they found out I was free, it was when we had to go to population. And that's when you mix up with everybody. And these kids were scared, man. They were scared about what could happen and who they got to be with. So when I left, so when I end up leaving,
I told you 3 o'clock. You said 15-minute grace period.
So
I
anyway,
had an appointment at 2:30. I know it's past the grace period.
by the
Would
time I
have
was
to still,
leaving,
schedule.
so basically when I was leaving, I was put in this another cell, maybe about 4 or 5 different cells with about 30 or 40 different criminals, and they were, just traveling through this place. It wasn't really a place where you could be itemized and they can make sure I'm with just people with license problems. I was with straight up thugs, killers, rapists, and all that type of stuff. So on my way out, being stuck in these cells with them, I got quiet and I would just listen. And they were talking about all this negativity and what they did and the east side and the west side and throwing up their gang signs. And unbelievably, they started talking about God, and it drew me in the conversation. It was like they were asking me, forcing me to get involved. Everyone knows Muslims, especially in jail, but me be having a beard, and me maybe they thought maybe I'm Muslim and they wanted to talk to me. I ended up talking to the guys, and you could hear a pin drop. Nobody was saying anything but me and listening. They were listening, and it was a reminder for myself, and it did something to me to understand how powerful, this way of life is. So, they finally released me, man, and it's gonna stay with me, if God's willing, forever, because these young kids starting out so hardcore scared me. Come to find out, they were scared of me in retrospect, and then to see them get soft, and tattoos everywhere. I mean, real deal, and get soft, and even start praying behind me. So, that's how my week went. And it was definitely an experience I would like to share with you guys. So if anybody got anything similar, or, hit me up. Robert Pelez, boxing. Defense first. Talk about it all. Religion, boxing, and plumbing. Let me know. Peace.